What happened when my mother recognized an unexpected guest at my wedding ended up changing everything. Welcome to the channel. Enjoy the video, give it a like, subscribe, turn on notifications, comment and share. The glittering chandeliers of the grand ballroom at the Ritz-Carlton in Napa Valley cast a golden glow over the sea of designer gowns and tailored tuxedos. Olivia Carter, heiress to a multi-billion-dollar tech empire, stood at the center of it all. A vision in white silk and lace. Her engagement ring, a flawless 10-carat diamond, caught the light with every subtle movement of her hand. Yet, despite the opulence surrounding her, a nagging doubt gnawed at the pit of her stomach. "Smile, darling," Nathan Miller, her fiancé, whispered in her ear, his hand possessively placed on the small of her back. "This is our moment." Olivia forced a smile, acutely aware of the countless eyes upon them. The crème de la crème of California's elite had gathered for their engagement party, a prelude to what promised to be the wedding of the decade. Tech moguls mingled with real estate tycoons, their collective net worth rivaling the GDP of small nations. As Nathan guided her through the crowd, shaking hands and accepting congratulations, Olivia couldn't help but feel like a prized thoroughbred being paraded before potential buyers. Each compliment, each toast to their future, felt hollow, rehearsed. "You two make such a power couple," gushed a Silicon Valley venture capitalist, his trophy wife nodding in agreement. The merger of Carter Technologies and Miller Hospitality will be the talk of Wall Street for years to come. Merger. The word echoed in Olivia's mind. Was that all this was? A business transaction dressed up in white lace and promises of forever. She excused herself, needing a moment of solitude. As she made her way to the terrace, she overheard snippets of conversations, all revolving around money, power, and influence. "Did you hear about the new tax loophole for offshore accounts? I just closed a deal on a penthouse in Manhattan, 40 million down. Can you believe it? The stock market's been bullish lately. My portfolio's up 20% this quarter alone." Olivia stepped out onto the moonlit terrace, the cool night air, a welcome respite from the stifling atmosphere inside. She gazed out at the rolling hills of Napa Valley, dotted with some of the most expensive vineyards in the world. In the distance, she could make out the silhouette of her family's estate, a sprawling mansion that had been featured in architectural magazines and celebrity home tours. "Quite a view, isn't it?" a familiar voice said behind her. Olivia turned to see her mother, Sarah Carter, approaching. Even at 54, Sarah was a striking figure, her blonde hair perfectly coiffed, her dress a masterpiece of haute couture. "Mom," Olivia said, trying to keep the tremor out of her voice. "I didn't expect to see you out here." Sarah joined her daughter at the railing, her eyes scanning the horizon. "I needed some fresh air. These events can be suffocating." Olivia raised an eyebrow. It wasn't like her mother to show any sign of weakness or discomfort in social situations. Sarah Carter was known for her iron will and unflappable demeanor, traits that had served her well as she helped build Carter Technologies into a global powerhouse. "Is everything all right?" Olivia asked, sensing an undercurrent of tension in her mother's posture. Sarah turned to face her daughter, her expression unreadable. "Olivia, there's something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you long ago." The weight in her mother's words sent a chill down Olivia's spine. "What is it, Mom?" Before Sarah could answer, they were interrupted by the sound of raised voices coming from inside the ballroom. Olivia and Sarah exchanged a look of concern before hurrying back inside. The crowd had parted, forming a circle around two figures at the center of the room. Nathan stood there, his face flushed with anger, confronting a man Olivia didn't recognize. The stranger was tall, distinguished-looking, with salt and pepper hair and piercing blue eyes that seemed oddly familiar. "You weren't invited," Nathan was saying, his voice tight with barely contained fury. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave." The man remained calm, his gaze sweeping the room until it landed on Olivia and Sarah. A small smile played at the corners of his mouth. "I'm afraid I can't do that," he said, his voice carrying across the now silent ballroom. "You see, I have some urgent business with the Carter family." Olivia felt her mother stiffen beside her. She turned to look at Sarah and was shocked to see all the color had drained from her face. "Mom," Olivia whispered, "who is that man?" Sarah's lips barely moved as she answered, her voice barely audible. "That's Jack Reynolds. He's your father." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Olivia gripped the back of a nearby chair for support, her mind reeling. Her father. But her father had died when she was a baby. At least, that's what she'd always been told. Jack Reynolds. The name rang a bell. He was a well-known figure in the energy sector, a self-made billionaire who had revolutionized the solar power industry. But how could he be her father? As if in a daze, Olivia watched as Jack made his way towards them, the crowd parting before him like the Red Sea. Nathan tried to intercept him, but Jack brushed past with the ease of a man accustomed to getting his way. "Hello, Sarah," Jack said, his voice softer now, tinged with an emotion Olivia couldn't quite place. "It's been a long time." Sarah's face was a mask of cold fury. "You shouldn't be here, Jack. You need to leave. Now." Jack's gaze shifted to Olivia, his blue eyes, so like her own, filled with a mixture of pain and wonder. "My God," he breathed. "You look just like your mother." Olivia felt as if she were underwater, sounds muffled, her vision blurring at the edges. This couldn't be happening. Not here. Not now. Not on what was supposed to be one of the happiest nights of her life. "I don't understand," she managed to say, her voice sounding strange to her own ears. "My father is dead. He died in a car accident when I was a baby." Jack's expression hardened as he looked back at Sarah. "Is that what you told her? That I was dead?" The tension in the room was palpable. Guests whispered among themselves, phones discreetly recording the unfolding drama. In the background, Olivia could hear the click of camera shutters. The paparazzi who had managed to infiltrate the event were having a field day. Nathan appeared at Olivia's side, placing a protective arm around her waist. "I think you should leave, Mr. Reynolds," he said, his voice low and threatening. "You're causing a scene." Jack ignored him, his focus entirely on Olivia. "I've waited 28 years for this moment," he said. "I'm not leaving until I've had a chance to explain." Sarah stepped between them, her voice ice cold. "There's nothing to explain, Jack. You made your choice all those years ago. You don't get to waltz back in here and disrupt our lives." Olivia's head was spinning. She looked from her mother to Jack, then to Nathan, trying to make sense of what was happening. The weight of hidden truths and long-buried secrets seemed to press down on her, making it hard to breathe. "I think," she said slowly, surprised at how steady her voice sounded, "that we all need to have a conversation. In private." Nathan started to protest, but Olivia silenced him with a look. She turned to the stunned crowd of guests. "I apologize for the interruption," she said, years of etiquette training kicking in. "Please, enjoy the rest of the evening. My family and I need to attend to an urgent matter." With that, she gestured for Sarah, Jack, and Nathan to follow her, leading them towards a private study off the main ballroom. As they walked, Olivia could feel the eyes of every guest upon them, could almost hear the furious tapping of tweets and text messages being sent. By morning, this would be splashed across every tabloid and gossip site. The study was a haven of old-world luxury, with leather-bound books lining the walls and a massive mahogany desk dominating the center of the room. Olivia closed the door behind them, shutting out the murmur of the party. For a long moment, no one spoke. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. Olivia looked at each face in turn, her mother's pale and drawn, Jack's, a mixture of hope and apprehension, Nathan's, confusion giving way to calculation. Finally, Olivia broke the silence. "I think," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "that it's time for the truth. All of it." Sarah sank into one of the plush armchairs, suddenly looking every bit her 54 years. "Olivia, darling, I'm so sorry. I never meant for you to find out like this." Jack remained standing, his hands shoved deep in the pockets of his expertly tailored suit. "I've been trying to reach out for years," he said. "Your mother. She made it very clear that I wasn't welcome in your life." Nathan paced the room like a caged tiger, his mind clearly racing. "This is insane," he muttered. "Do you have any idea what this will do to our stock prices? The merger." Olivia felt a flash of anger at Nathan's words. Here she was, her entire world turned upside down, and all he could think about was the financial implications. "Nathan," she said, her voice sharp, "that's enough. This isn't about the merger or the stock market. This is about my life, about who I am." She turned back to Sarah and Jack, her heart pounding. "I want to know everything," she said. "No more lies, no more half-truths. I deserve to know where I come from." Sarah nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "You're right, of course. It's time you knew the whole story. As Sarah began to speak, Olivia felt as if she were standing on the edge of a precipice. Whatever she was about to learn would change everything, her past, her present, and her future. The carefully constructed world of wealth and privilege that had defined her existence was about to be shaken to its very foundations. Little did she know that the revelations about to unfold would not only redefine her family history, but would set in motion a chain of events that would reshape the landscape of power and influence in the high-stakes world of California's elite. The truth, as Olivia was about to discover, was far more complex and far-reaching than she could have ever imagined. Sarah took a deep breath, her fingers nervously twisting the string of pearls around her neck, a Carter family heirloom worth millions. "It all started nearly 30 years ago," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. Carter Technologies was just a startup then, struggling to make its mark in Silicon Valley. Jack leaned against the mahogany bookshelf, his eyes never leaving Sarah's face. "I was working on developing new solar panel technology," he added, "revolutionary stuff, but I needed funding. My father saw potential in Jack's work," Sarah continued. "He offered to invest, but on one condition, that Jack partner with Carter Technologies to bring his innovations to market." Olivia listened intently, her mind racing to piece together this new narrative of her family's history. She'd grown up hearing stories of her grandfather's business acumen, how he'd built Carter Technologies from the ground up. But this was something entirely new. "We worked closely together for months," Jack said, a hint of nostalgia in his voice. "Late nights at the lab, endless meetings with investors, and somewhere along the way, we fell in love," Sarah finished, her eyes meeting Jack's for a brief moment before darting away. Nathan scoffed, pacing the room like a caged animal. "This is absurd. Are you saying that the entire foundation of Carter Technologies is built on stolen technology?" Jack's eyes flashed dangerously. "Nothing was stolen. Everything was above board, at first." Olivia held up a hand, silencing Nathan before he could retort. "Please, continue," she said, her voice steady despite the turmoil in her heart. Sarah nodded, twisting her hands in her lap. "Jack and we were young, in love, and dreaming of changing the world. But my father, your grandfather, Olivia, he had other plans." "What do you mean?" Olivia asked, dreading the answer. "He wanted to push Jack out," Sarah said, her voice barely audible. "Take control of the patents, the research, everything. He saw dollar signs, not the potential to revolutionize clean energy." Jack's jaw clenched. "I fought back, of course. Threatened legal action. But your grandfather, he was a powerful man, with friends in high places. And then I found out I was pregnant," Sarah added, her eyes meeting Olivia's. "With you." The room fell silent, the weight of decades-old secrets pressing down on them all. Olivia felt as if she were seeing her family, her entire life, through a warped lens. Everything she thought she knew was being called into question. "What happened next?" she asked, almost afraid to hear the answer. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "Your grandfather gave us an ultimatum. Jack could walk away from the company, from the patents, from everything, or he'd make sure Jack never worked in the tech industry again. And he'd make sure Jack never saw you." "That's blackmail," Olivia exclaimed, shocked at the revelation about her beloved grandfather. Jack nodded grimly. "It was, but I was young, scared, and facing off against one of the most powerful men in Silicon Valley. I thought I was doing the right thing by stepping away. So you just left." Olivia turned to Jack, hurt and anger warring in her chest. "You abandoned us." "No." Jack's voice was anguished. "God, no. I tried to fight it. I hired lawyers, I appealed to Sarah, but I was a coward," Sarah finished, her voice thick with regret. "I was afraid of losing everything. The company, my family's legacy, my father's approval, so I went along with it. I told everyone you had died in an accident," he's Jack, "and I raised Olivia as a Carter, never breathing a word about you." Olivia felt as if the floor was shifting beneath her feet. Her entire identity, the legacy she'd been groomed to inherit, it was all built on lies and manipulation. Nathan Rule, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly spoke up. "This changes everything," he said, his mind clearly racing. "The merger, the combining of our families and empires, it's all based on a foundation of sand." Olivia turned to him, really seeing him for the first time that night. "Is that all you care about?" she asked, her voice laced with disbelief. "The merger? My entire world has just been turned upside down, and you're worried about business deals." Nathan at least had the grace to look ashamed. "I'm sorry, Olivia. It's just, this is bigger than just us. The ripple effects of this revelation could impact thousands of jobs, billions in market value." Jack stepped forward, his presence commanding attention. "He's right about one thing. This is bigger than just us. But maybe that's not such a bad thing." All eyes turned to him, questioning. Jack continued, his voice gaining strength. "For years, I've watched from the sidelines as Carter Technologies grew into a behemoth. I've seen the potential of my original work watered down, corrupted by the pursuit of profit over progress." He turned to Olivia, his eyes, so like her own, filled with a mixture of regret and hope. "But you, Olivia, you have the power to change things, to right the wrongs of the past and steer these companies, towards a future that could truly make a difference." Olivia felt the weight of expectation settle on her shoulders. She looked around the room at her mother, bowed by the weight of long-held secrets, at Nathan, his mind still whirring with calculations and contingencies, and at Jack, the father she never knew, offering her a chance at redemption. "I need some air," she said abruptly, turning towards the door. I need time to think." Without waiting for a response, she fled the study, her heels clicking against the marble floors as she made her way through the now subdued party. Whispers followed in her wake, but she ignored them all, focused solely on reaching the exit. The cool night air hit her like a slap as she burst out of the Ritz-Carlton. Without a clear destination in mind, she began to walk, her designer gown trailing behind her as she made her way down the moonlit path that wound through the immaculately landscaped grounds. Her mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. Everything she thought she knew about herself, about her family, about her place in the world, it had all been turned on its head in the span of a single evening. She found herself at the edge of a small ornamental lake, its surface a perfect mirror reflecting the star-studded sky above. Olivia stared at her reflection, trying to reconcile the image of the poised, confident heiress with the lost, confused woman she felt like inside. "Quite a night, isn't it?" a voice said behind her. Olivia whirled around to find Eleanor Miller, Nathan's grandmother, approaching with the aid of an ornate cane. Despite her advanced age, Eleanor moved with the grace and poise of a woman half her years. "Mrs. Miller," Olivia said, hastily wiping at her eyes. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to abandon the party. I just needed a moment to—" Eleanor waved off her apologies with a gentle smile. "No need to explain, my dear. And please, call me Eleanor. After all, we're to be family soon, although I suspect that particular plan might be up for reconsideration now." Olivia felt a flash of panic. "You know? About Jack? About everything?" "My dear," Eleanor said, her eyes twinkling with a mixture of wisdom and mischief. "Very little happens in our circles without me knowing about it, and I've known Jack Reynolds for a very long time." She gestured to a nearby bench, and Olivia found herself sitting down beside the older woman, drawn in by her calm presence. "I remember when you were born," Eleanor continued, her voice soft with remembrance. "Such a tiny thing, with those big blue eyes. Jack came to me, you know, torn up about having to walk away. I advised him against it, told him to fight. But fear can make people do foolish things." Olivia felt a lump form in her throat. "You knew? All this time?" Eleanor nodded, her expression somber. "I did, and I've watched you grow up from afar, seen you become the remarkable young woman you are today. I've also watched Nathan, seen how the expectations placed on him have shaped him, not always for the better." She turned to face Olivia fully, her aged hands grasping Olivia's younger ones. "You're at a crossroads now, my dear. The choices you make in the coming days and weeks will shape not just your future, but the futures of countless others. It's a heavy burden, but one I believe you're more than capable of bearing." Olivia felt tears welling up in her eyes. "I don't know what to do," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "Everything I thought I knew, it's all been a lie." Eleanor squeezed her hands gently. "Not everything, Olivia. The strength inside you, the compassion, the intelligence, those are all real. They're all you. The question now is, how will you use them?" As they sat there under the starry sky, the sounds of the party a distant murmur, Olivia felt something shift inside her. The shock and confusion began to give way to a sense of purpose, a determination to uncover the full truth and make things right. Little did she know that her quest for answers would uncover even deeper secrets, testing her resolve and forcing her to confront the true nature of power, loyalty, and love in the high-stakes world she inhabited. The journey ahead would be fraught with danger and difficult choices, but it would also offer the promise of redemption, not just for herself, but for the legacy of 3 powerful families intertwined by fate and ambition. As the night wore on, the glittering facade of wealth and privilege began to crumble, revealing the complex web of lies, love, and long-buried truths that would soon shake the foundations of Silicon Valley's elite to its very core. The following morning, Olivia sat in Eleanor's private study at the Miller estate, a cup of untouched tea growing cold before her. The room, with its antique furniture and priceless art collection, spoke of old money and refined taste. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, she could see gardeners tending to the immaculate grounds of the $100 million property. "Your grandfather wasn't always the ruthless businessman he became," Eleanor said, settling into her favorite armchair. "The death of your grandmother changed him. He became obsessed with building a legacy, no matter the cost." Olivia picked up her phone, scrolling through the morning's headlines. Their family drama had made the front page of every major business publication. Carter-Miller merger in jeopardy, secret air scandal rocks, Silicon Valley. Tech heiress's world shattered, billion-dollar empire built on lies. Jack Reynolds, the return of Silicon Valley's prodigal son. "The stock market's already reacting," Olivia noted, her voice hollow. "Carter Technologies is down 12% in pre-market trading." Eleanor waved her hand dismissively. "Time money comes and goes, my dear. What matters now is what you're going to do with the truth." Before Olivia could respond, her phone buzzed with an incoming call. Nathan's name flashed on the screen. She declined it, her 4th time doing so since dawn. "He's not going to give up easily," Eleanor observed. "My grandson can be quite persistent when it comes to protecting his interests." "You mean the merger?" Olivia said bitterly. "The deal that would make him CEO of the combined companies." Eleanor's eyes softened. "Nathan wasn't always like this. The pressure of being William's son, of having to live up to the Miller name, it shaped him in ways I wish it hadn't." A gentle knock at the door interrupted their conversation. Eleanor's personal butler entered, his posture impeccable. "Mr. Reynolds is here to see Miss Carter," he announced. Olivia's heart skipped a beat. She looked to Eleanor, who nodded encouragingly. "Show him in, James," the older woman instructed. "And please, bring fresh tea." Jack entered the study, looking slightly less polished than the night before. His expensive suit was slightly rumpled, suggesting he hadn't slept much either. "Olivia," he said softly, "I hoped I'd find you here." Eleanor rose gracefully. "I'll give you two some privacy. Remember what we discussed, Olivia." With that, she left the room, closing the heavy oak door behind her. For a moment, father and daughter regarded each other in silence. The morning sun streaming through the windows highlighted their similar features, the same blue eyes, the same determined set of the jaw. "I spent all night reading about you," Olivia finally said. "Your work in renewable energy, the breakthroughs your company has made. You've built something remarkable." Jack moved to the window, looking out over the manicured gardens. "Yes, I tried to channel my pain into something positive. Every advancement we made, every patent we secured. I hoped you'd hear about it somehow, that you'd be proud. Why didn't you fight harder?" The question burst from Olivia before she could stop it. "You let them erase you from my life." Jack turned back to face her, his expression pained. "I did fight, for years. Your grandfather's lawyers buried me in litigation. Every time I tried to make contact, they threatened to destroy everything I'd built, not just my company, but the jobs of thousands of people who depended on me." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a worn envelope. "But I never stopped thinking about you. I wrote you letters, hundreds of them. This one I wrote on your 18th birthday." Olivia took the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a letter, the paper yellowed with age. As she read, tears began to fall, smudging the ink of words written a decade ago. "I kept track of everything," Jack continued softly. "Your graduation from Stanford, your first patent, your promotion to Chief Innovation Officer at Carter Technologies. I was there, at your graduation. Sitting in the back, just another face in the crowd. Olivia looked up sharply. "You were there?" He nodded. "It was worth all the risk just to see you accept your diploma. You were so poised, so confident, just like your mother." A knock at the door interrupted them. James entered with fresh tea, but he wasn't alone. Sarah stood in the doorway, her usual perfect composure slightly frayed around the edges. "I should have known you'd be here," she said to Jack, her voice tight. "Still hiding behind the Millers after all these years." "Mom," Olivia warned. "Don't." Sarah entered the room fully, closing the door behind her. "Olivia, sweetheart, you need to come home. The board is calling an emergency meeting. William Miller is already making moves to force a vote on the merger." "The merger?" Olivia laughed incredulously. "After everything that's happened, that's what you're worried about." "It's not just about the merger," Sarah insisted. "It's about protecting everything we've built, everything your grandfather sacrificed for." "Sacrificed?" Jack's voice was sharp. "Is that what we're calling it now, Sarah? He didn't sacrifice anything. He stole. He threatened. He destroyed lives. He protected his family's interests." Sarah shot back. "Something you wouldn't understand, given how easily you walked away." "Enough!" Olivia's voice cut through their argument like a knife. She stood, her hands clenched at her sides. "Both of you, just stop. This isn't about your past anymore. This is about the future, my future." She turned to her mother. "You lied to me my entire life. You let me believe my father was dead while building an empire on his stolen innovations." "Olivia, please," Sarah began, but Olivia held up a hand. "And you," she turned to Jack, "you may have had your reasons for staying away, but you still chose your company over fighting for me." Both parents fell silent, the weight of their choices hanging heavy in the air. "Miss Carter," James appeared at the door again, looking apologetic for another interruption. "Mr. Miller, William Miller, is here. He's quite insistent on speaking with you." Olivia squared her shoulders, feeling the weight of 3 families' legacies pressing down on her. "Show him in, James. It's time we got everything out in the open." As William Miller's commanding presence filled the doorway, Olivia caught a glimpse of Nathan hovering behind his father, his expression a mixture of concern and calculation. The stage was set for a confrontation that would either tear their world apart or forge something entirely new from the ashes of long-buried secrets. The morning sun continued to climb higher in the sky, casting long shadows across the study's expensive furnishings as the key players in this high-stakes drama prepared to face off. The truth about power, loyalty, and redemption was about to be tested in ways none of them could have anticipated. William Miller strode into Eleanor's study like he owned it, his custom-made Italian suit a subtle display of his billion-dollar fortune. At 60, he carried himself with the authority of a man accustomed to bending the world to his will. Nathan followed in his father's wake, looking increasingly uncomfortable. "Well, well," William said, his cold eyes surveying the room. "Quite the family reunion we're having here. Jack Reynolds. It's been, what, 28 years? 29, Jack corrected, his voice equally cold. "Not that you're counting." Eleanor re-entered the room, her presence commanding instant respect. "William, I don't recall inviting you to my home this morning." "Mother," William acknowledged with barely concealed impatience, "this is a business matter. The markets are in free fall. We need to contain this situation immediately." "Contain?" Olivia stepped forward. "You mean cover it up? Sweep it under the rug like everything else?" William turned to her, his expression softening slightly. "Olivia, my dear, you need to understand the bigger picture. This merger isn't just about our families. It's about securing the future of thousands of employees, shareholders and stakeholders." "The bigger picture," Jack scoffed. "You mean your bigger bank account? That's all you've ever cared about, William. You and Richard Carter were cut from the same cloth." "Dad," Nathan interjected, moving to stand beside Olivia. "Maybe we should discuss this privately. The press is already having a field day." Olivia stepped away from him, creating a visible distance. "No more private discussions, no more secrets. Everything comes out now." Sarah moved to the center of the room, her designer heels clicking against the hardwood floor. "Olivia, please be reasonable. The board meeting is in 2 hours. We need to present a united front." "United?" Olivia laughed bitterly. "Like how you and grandfather united to steal Jack's technology, to build our entire company on lies." William's face darkened. Watch your tone, young lady. You're talking about billions in market value, decades of business relationships. I'm talking about my life. Olivia's voice rose. About who I am, where I come from, about right and wrong. Eleanor raised her hand, silencing the room. Perhaps, she said carefully, it's time we all heard the full story. William, you and Richard Carter didn't just steal Jack's technology, did you? There's more to this tale. All eyes turned to William, who suddenly looked uncomfortable. Mother, this isn't the time. It's exactly the time, Eleanor insisted. Tell them about the deal you made with Richard Carter. Tell them why you really pushed so hard for this merger. Nathan looked at his father, confusion evident on his face. Dad? What's she talking about? William loosened his tie slightly, a rare show of discomfort. It was business, he began. Pure business. Richard Carter had the political connections we needed to bury the truth about Jack's patents. In exchange, he wanted assurance that the Miller fortune would eventually merge with Carter Technologies. The arranged marriage, Olivia whispered. Realization dawning. Nathan and me, it was planned from the beginning, since you were children, Sarah confirmed quietly. The merger wasn't just about combining companies. It was about ensuring the secret stayed buried forever. Nathan sank into a nearby chair, his face ashen. All those summer vacations together, the coincidental meetings at charity events, it was all orchestrated. Your grandfather was nothing if not thorough, Jack said bitterly. He orchestrated everything. My removal, the cover-up, even his granddaughter's future marriage. Olivia felt the room spinning. She gripped the back of a chair for support, her knuckles turning white. So not only did you steal my father from me, she said to her mother, you also planned to steal my chance at real love, at choosing my own path. We wanted to protect you, Sarah insisted, to give you everything. Everything except the truth, Olivia cut her off. Everything except freedom. Eleanor moved to stand beside Olivia, placing a steadying hand on her shoulder. The truth has a way of coming out, no matter how deeply it's buried. The question now is, what do we do with it? William straightened his tie, regaining his composure. We do damage control, release a statement about family reconciliation, announce a brief postponement of the merger while we restructure the deal. The markets will stabilize. No, Olivia's voice was firm. No more lies, no more deals, no more manipulation. She turned to face the assembled group, her spine straight, her chin lifted. In that moment, she looked every inch the leader she was meant to be, not because of arranged marriages or corporate machinations, but because of her own strength. I'm calling a press conference, she announced. This afternoon, I'm going to tell the world everything about Jack's stolen technology, about the cover-up, about the arranged marriage, everything. You'll destroy us all, William warned. The stock will plummet. The Miller Empire, Carter Technologies, everything we've built will crumble. Maybe it needs to crumble, Olivia replied. Maybe we need to tear it all down and build something new, something honest. Nathan stood suddenly. She's right. All eyes turned to him in surprise. I'm tired of living a lie, of being a pawn in someone else's game. He moved to stand beside Olivia, but not too close. I'll support whatever you decide to do. Jack stepped forward. I have documentation, proof of everything, records, patents, correspondence. I've kept it all these years, waiting for the right moment. Sarah sank into a chair, her perfectly maintained facade finally cracking. Your grandfather? He'll never forgive us. Grandfather will have to learn to live with the truth, Olivia said firmly. Just like the rest of us. Eleanor smiled, a glimmer of pride in her eyes. Well, it seems the next generation has more backbone than ours ever did. William, Sarah, I suggest you both start preparing your statements. The world is about to change. William's face had turned an alarming shade of red. You can't do this. I won't allow it. You don't have a choice, Olivia replied calmly. None of us do anymore. The truth is coming out, one way or another. As if on cue, Olivia's phone buzzed with a news alert. Someone had leaked photos from the previous night's confrontation at the engagement party. Social media was already ablaze with speculation and rumors. It's starting, Nathan observed, looking at his own phone. For the tech blogs are running wild with theories. Olivia took a deep breath, feeling strangely calm despite the chaos unfolding around her. Then we better make sure they hear the real story, straight from the source. She turned to Jack, her father, seeing him with new eyes. Will you stand with me at the press conference? Tell your side of the story. Jack's eyes filled with tears. I've waited 29 years to stand beside you, Olivia. Nothing would make me prouder. As the morning sun reached its zenith, casting brilliant light through the study's windows, the members of three of Silicon Valley's most powerful families faced a moment of reckoning. The carefully constructed facade of wealth, power, and privilege was about to come crashing down. And from its ruins, something new would rise. Something built on truth, redemption, and the courage to face the consequences of long-buried secrets. The grand ballroom of the Four Seasons Silicon Valley buzzed with anticipation. Journalists from every major news outlet packed the room, their cameras and microphones ready to capture what promised to be the biggest corporate scandal story of the decade. The hotel's crystal chandeliers cast a harsh light on the assembled press corps, their combined net worth dwarfed by the billions at stake in the unfolding drama. Olivia stood backstage, watching the scene through a gap in the curtains. Her Chanel suit, usually a source of confidence, felt like armor now. Jack stood beside her, reviewing his notes one last time, while Nathan paced nervously nearby. The market's been suspended, Nathan reported, checking his phone. Trading halted on both Carter Technologies and Miller Hospitality stocks after they hit the circuit breakers. The financial channels are going crazy with speculation. Good, Olivia said firmly. Let them speculate. In about 10 minutes, they'll have the whole truth. Sarah burst into the backstage area, looking frantic. Olivia, please, there's still time to reconsider. Your grandfather? He's had a heart attack. Olivia's head snapped up. What? When? An hour ago, when he heard about the press conference. He's at Stanford Medical Center. Sarah's eyes were pleading. He's asking for you. Jack stepped forward. This is another manipulation tactic, Olivia. Richard Carter has played this card before. It's not a tactic, Sarah insisted. He's really ill. The doctors say he's stable, Eleanor interrupted, entering the room with the aid of her cane. I just spoke with them myself. Richard Carter is many things, but dying isn't one of them, at least not today. Olivia felt a wave of relief, followed immediately by anger at the attempted manipulation. You see, Mom, even now, you're trying to control the narrative. It stops today. A stage manager approached. Miss Carter, we're ready for you. Olivia straightened her spine, checking her reflection one last time in a nearby mirror. The woman who looked back at her wasn't just the pampered heiress she'd been raised to be. She was someone stronger, someone ready to reshape the future of 3 dynasties. Wait, Nathan said suddenly, catching her arm. Before you go out there, I want you to know I'm sorry for everything, for not being the person you deserved. Olivia's expression softened slightly. We were both pawns, Nathan, but we don't have to be anymore. With that, she stepped onto the stage, the bright lights momentarily blinding her. Jack followed, taking his place beside her at the podium. The room fell silent. Hundreds of eyes and cameras focused on them. Good afternoon, Olivia began, her voice steady. My name is Olivia Carter, and I'm here to tell you a story about power, betrayal, and the price of truth. For the next 30 minutes, she laid it all bare. The stolen technology, the forced separation, the decades of lies, and the arranged marriage disguised as a merger. Jack provided technical details and documentation, his voice occasionally catching as he described the years of separation from his daughter. The room erupted with questions as they finished their prepared statements. Reporters shouted over each other, camera flashes creating a strobe-like effect. Miss Carter, what does this mean for the merger? Mr. Reynolds, will you be seeking legal action? What about the billions in market value that's being wiped out? Olivia raised her hand for silence. I understand there are many questions about the financial implications of these revelations, but this isn't just about money. This is about right and wrong, about correcting a historical injustice. She paused, making eye contact with various reporters. Effective immediately, I'm stepping down as Chief Innovation Officer of Carter Technologies. I will be joining my father's company, Reynolds Renewable Energy, where we will work together to develop the next generation of sustainable technology, the right way this time. The room exploded again. In the back, Olivia could see William Miller storming out, his face purple with rage. Nathan remained, his expression a mixture of respect and resignation. Furthermore, Jack added, we will be filing patents for new technology that combines Reynolds Renewables innovations with improvements developed at Carter Technologies. But this time, all parties will be properly credited and compensated. A veteran reporter from the Wall Street Journal stood up. "Miss Carter, aren't you concerned about the impact this will have on the thousands of employees at both companies?" Olivia leaned into the microphone. "Change is never easy, but I believe that companies built on lies cannot stand forever. It's time to rebuild on a foundation of truth." As the questions continued, Sarah slipped quietly into the ballroom. She stood at the back, watching her daughter with a mixture of pride and regret. Eleanor joined her, moving slowly but purposefully through the crowd. "She's magnificent," Eleanor observed. "Everything we should have been but weren't brave enough to be." Sarah nodded, tears in her eyes. "I thought I was protecting her all these years." But she never needed protection. She needed the truth. The press conference continued for another hour, with Olivia and Jack fielding questions about everything from technical specifications to family dynamics. As the event wound down, a young reporter asked the question everyone had been dancing around. "Miss Carter, do you forgive them? Your mother, your grandfather, the Millers?" Olivia paused, considering her words carefully. Forgiveness isn't something that happens in a moment. It's a process. What matters now is moving forward, building something new from the ashes of what was destroyed by lies and greed. As they left the stage, exhausted but unburdened, Olivia found Nathan waiting in the wings. He held out an envelope. "What's this?" she asked. "My resignation from Miller Hospitality," he replied. "I'm starting over too. Maybe we can both find our own paths now." Olivia took the envelope, feeling the weight of what could have been and the lightness of what could be. "Good luck, Nathan." Jack appeared at her side, placing a protective hand on her shoulder. "Ready to go see your grandfather?" Olivia nodded. "Yes, it's time to face everything and everyone." As they walked through the hotel's opulent lobby, past reporters still shouting questions and photographers snapping pictures, Olivia felt a strange sense of peace. The truth had cost billions in market value, shattered 2 corporate empires, and exposed decades of lies. But it had also set her free. The afternoon sun cast long shadows as their convoy of luxury cars made its way to Stanford Medical Center. The day wasn't over yet. There were still conversations to be had, bridges to rebuild or burn, and a future to shape. But for the first time in her life, Olivia Carter was walking toward that future on her own terms, with her real father by her side and the truth lighting their way. The private suite at Stanford Medical Center exuded the same luxury that Richard Carter had surrounded himself with his entire life. Even here, in a hospital room, the trappings of wealth were evident, from the imported silk bedding to the private nurse stationed outside. Olivia stood in the doorway, taking in the sight of her grandfather, the mighty Richard Carter, architect of a billion-dollar empire, looking small and vulnerable in his hospital bed. The heart monitor beeped steadily, its rhythm a reminder of mortality that even money couldn't buy off. "Are you going to stand there all day?" Richard said without opening his eyes. "Or come in and face your old grandfather?" Olivia entered the room, Jack following close behind. Richard's eyes opened, fixing immediately on Jack with a mixture of hatred and resignation. "So," Richard said, his voice weaker than his spirit, "you finally won, Reynolds." "This isn't about winning, Richard," Jack replied quietly. "It never was. It was about the truth." Richard attempted to sit up, his movements stiff and careful. "Truth? Truth doesn't build empires. Truth doesn't create legacies. I built something magnificent, something that will last for generations." "You built it on lies," Olivia interjected, moving closer to the bed. "On theft and manipulation. What kind of legacy is that?" Richard turned to his granddaughter, his expression softening slightly. "Everything I did for you. To secure your future. To give you the kind of life most people can only dream of." "No," Olivia shook her head. "You did it for yourself, for your ego, for your obsession with power and control." Sarah appeared in the doorway, having followed them from the press conference. She looked exhausted, the events of the past 24 hours having stripped away her usual polish. "Daddy," she said softly, "it's over. The truth is out. Maybe it's time to make peace with it." Richard's laugh turned into a cough. "Peace? The stock has lost billions in value. The merger is dead. The vultures are circling, ready to pick apart everything we built. And you want me to make peace. The company can be rebuilt, Jack said, stepping forward. The right way this time, with proper attribution, ethical practices, and genuine innovation. We're not here to gloat, grandfather, Olivia added. We're here because, despite everything, you're still family, and families face things together, even the hard truths. Richard was quiet for a long moment, studying the faces around him. Finally, he spoke, his voice carrying the weight of decades of secrets. I was afraid, he admitted, the words seeming to cost him physically, afraid of losing everything I'd worked for. When Jack's technology proved superior to anything we had, I saw an opportunity, and once you start down that path of deception, each lie requires another to maintain it. He turned to Sarah. Your mother, God rest her soul. She never knew. I couldn't bear for her to see what I'd become. And you, Sarah. I'm sorry for making you complicit in my sins. Sarah moved to her father's bedside, taking his hand. We all made choices, Dad. Wrong ones, but we can't change the past. No, Richard agreed, but perhaps we can shape the future. He looked at Olivia. You showed more courage today than I have in 30 years. You're a better person than I ever was. Jack cleared his throat. Richard, I have a proposition for you, one that might help salvage something from this situation. All eyes turned to him as he continued. Reynolds Renewable Energy has developed new breakthrough technology in solar storage. Combined with the infrastructure and reach of Carter Technologies, we could revolutionize the energy sector, legally and ethically this time. Richard's eyebrows rose. You'd consider a partnership, after everything. Not a partnership, Olivia interjected. A new company entirely. One built on transparency and innovation, not secrets and lies. With you as an advisor, if you're willing to do things differently. The old man was quiet for a long moment, the beeping of the heart monitor the only sound in the room. Finally, he nodded slowly. Perhaps it's time for a new legacy, he said. One my great-grandchildren won't have to be ashamed of. The tension in the room began to dissolve, replaced by something that felt cautiously like hope. As they discussed the details of the new venture, Eleanor Miller appeared in the doorway, Nathan at her side. I hope we're not interrupting, Eleanor said, moving into the room with her characteristic grace. But I thought it was time for all of us to talk about the future. Nathan stepped forward, looking more relaxed than he had in years. I've been thinking about what you said, Olivia, about finding our own paths. I've decided to use my share of the Miller fortune to start a foundation focusing on ethical business practices and corporate transparency. Olivia smiled, genuine warmth in her expression. That sounds perfect for you, Nathan. You always were better at helping others than playing corporate politics. Eleanor made her way to Richard's bedside. Well, Richard, it seems our grandchildren have managed to teach us all a valuable lesson about integrity and courage. Richard nodded, a hint of his old spark returning. Indeed they have, Eleanor, indeed they have. As the afternoon light began to fade, casting long shadows through the hospital room windows, the members of three of Silicon Valley's most powerful families began the delicate work of rebuilding, not just their businesses, but their relationships with each other and with the truth. 6 months later, Olivia stood at a podium again, this time announcing the launch of Carter Reynolds Sustainable Technologies. The company's IPO would break records, but more importantly, it would set new standards for corporate ethics and transparency in Silicon Valley. Jack stood beside her, beaming with pride as his daughter outlined their vision for the future. Sarah sat in the front row, finally at peace with her past choices. Richard, recovered from his health scare but humbled by events, watched from a wheelchair, Eleanor by his side as a friend and advisor. Nathan was there too, having just returned from setting up his foundation's first Ethics in Business Scholarship program. He caught Olivia's eye and smiled, both of them finally comfortable with what they were to each other, not arranged marriage partners, but allies in creating positive change. As Olivia concluded her speech, she looked out at the assembled crowd, journalists, investors, employees, and family members. The truth, and she said, is not always comfortable. It's not always profitable, but it is always worth fighting for. Because in the end, the only legacy that truly matters is the example we set for future generations. The applause that followed was thunderous, but Olivia barely heard it. She was looking at her father, at her mother, at her grandfather, at all the people who had shaped her story, for better or worse. They had all been transformed by the truth, their lives forever changed by the courage to face it. As she left the stage, Olivia felt a profound sense of rightness. The path ahead wouldn't be easy, but it would be honest. And in that honesty lay the seeds of something far more valuable than all the wealth and power that had been lost. The chance to build a truly lasting legacy, one founded on integrity, courage, and the unshakable power of truth.